Welcome to episode 173 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat with WNBL's Sally Phillips about hoops, TV, and connecting grassroots with elite talent.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who quotes himself on his own Instagram, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to Sports Geek. And really, do quotes even exist if they don't appear on an Instagram feed? Yes, I do quote myself on my own Instagram, but I must say I don't do it myself. I'm very thankful that Meg and Jolie pulled together that content, pulling it from both these episodes and from my keynotes to remember some of the nuggets that I may have shared over the years. If you are a new listener to the podcast, thank you very much for coming on board. You might be doing so on my favourite podcast player, Pocket Casts, because I do mention it in every single episode. But you could be also listening on iTunes, on Google Play, or on sportsgeekhq.com. And very much appreciative of you listening. This week's episode, I caught up with Sally Phillips. I actually did some work with Sally Phillips when she was back at Dandenong Rangers, and now she is head of the WNBL, I should say, the Women's National Basketball League in working at Basketball Australia. So wanted to catch up with her around some of the challenges that exist for the WNBL, but also some of the successes she's had being in the role now 13 months, I think it is. So here is my chat with Sally Phillips, head of WNBL. Very happy to have Sally Phillips, head of the WNBL. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Sean. It's great to be here.
So you've been in the role as head of the NBL. So the WNBL is the Women's National Basketball League here in Australia. It's one of the top leagues going around the world. You came into the role for 13 months. You've just gone past a year.
Yeah, it's about just over a year ago. Yeah, that it first all started. So. Yeah, so thrown into the fire, into the deep end.
Yeah, take us into that, because you've come into the role, and you're right, it was just before the season, and you know, what were some of the things that you had to look at with in that first couple of weeks?
Yeah, you're spot on. So it was an amazing time to start, because you were right. We were literally several weeks out from tip off. So, I wasn't going to be able to come in and save the world in a few weeks. So it was definitely, I think, for me, just to take some time and sit through that first season and make sure that I was learning. It was all about learning for me and watching what was going on behind the scenes. Obviously, everyone in Australia and around the world had been talking about the fact that the WNBL had not been on TV for a couple of years after the ABC decided to move the WNBL on after a very, very long and successful time sitting on the ABC. So that was probably front of mind for me, that first day walking in, as we need to get this league back on TV. As you just said, we're globally elite, unlike a lot of other sports that are played around the country. We're a sport where you can start at that local domestic level and work your way through to becoming an opal. Yep. So ranked top 2 or 3 in the world, depending on who you speak to. So to be ranked top 3 in the world, we're very proud of the amazing league that the WNBL is.
So you've got great product on the floor, with the players that are playing and the players that are coming through, both from the younger ranks. And so you came into the role from, so take us a bit back to, how you got into the role. What was your role before that? What was your experience before that?
Yeah,
and so
of course.
People who are listening, know a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so look, basketball's been a part of my life since, I was 7 or 8 and first started running around on a basketball court. Went through the grassroots development system, which we do so well. It's one of the big ticks that you give basketball in Australia, is from that grassroots level, we have exceptional systems that take kids all the way through from I think I was running around for a little local club in Surrey Hills where I lived, which no one's probably even heard of, and then got recruited through to the elite system, playing all my junior basketball with the Bulleen Boomers.
Yep.
And then, headed off to the AIS as a young 16-year-old for a couple of years on a scholarship, and that's kind of where it all started. So, my first WNBL game was as a 16-year-old with the AIS, and went on to play another 10 years. So I think I clocked up 193 games as the official tally. I reckon I might have had a few more. I'm not sure what happened there. Unfortunately,
well, can you go back into the books and just get yourself to the 200
can someone
club?
just go into that Excel spreadsheet and fiddle with the numbers? But no, we'll tick it off that's what it was. Unfortunately, had a couple of injuries where I lost nearly a season twice. So at 18, went through glandular fever and lost nearly a season, and then in 95, leading into the Atlanta Olympics, came back from playing a year of college in Oregon and did my knee, so missed another season. So had a couple of seasons out via injury. And, back when I was playing, it was tough. We were trying to work full time and get to training and train in the mornings and train at night and work during the day and get paid, here's your check for $500 for the season. Thanks very much. So it was tough going back then. And so I think sort of when I retired, I was only 26, 27. My mature 44-year-old head now tells me, you crazy, what did you get out of the game so early for? But, my husband and I met, and we've bought a house and we've got a mortgage, and basketball just didn't pay the bills back in those days. So, made the choice to move on to some corporate life and try and further myself that way. So, went on and walked right away from basketball because it was very painful for me to finish. It had been such a huge part of my life, and to not be involved anymore, I just needed to walk away.
So you just needed that both mental break and just step away from the game.
Yeah, and when I finished up, I was unfortunately had a really serious ankle injury the last season I played. So for me, I guess I finished early because of injury. So didn't finish the way I would have liked. My last season played in a grand final with Adelaide, and we lost that game. So didn't win on we didn't win a championship. Didn't tick any of those boxes. So I think as an athlete, that's it's a bit of a cliche, but that's why we all play. So I finished up extremely. It was a very, very disappointing way to finish. A 10+ year WNBL career. So, for me, I needed to get my headspace right and had to walk away because I'd watch a game and I'd be so upset that I wasn't out there playing, or
the competitive juices are still flowing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd see someone in an Opals jersey and I'd be like, I really, reckon that could be me if I was still playing and fit. So, growing up, and I've got articles in boxes at home of talking about wanting to be an Olympian. I didn't tick that box, and so you sort of, as an athlete, you have a lot of regret that's really hard to move on from. So I did sort of need to just remove myself for a while, and didn't go to games, didn't watch, didn't get involved, and then all of a sudden a job came up at Dandenong several years ago now, so probably 4 or 5 years ago when that came up, and I thought, I think mentally I'm okay and ready to get back into a game that I love, because I'd love to be able to give something back to something that gave me so much joy over the years. So, commercial operations manager role at Dandenong came up, and I was lucky enough to get the role, and that's, I guess, where my basketball journey and work sense started again.
Yeah, so you're working on the club side, seeing the frustrations, the challenges, the opportunities, all sides on the club side, and then you're in that role for a few years before the WNBL role came up. Yeah,
absolutely. So it was about 3 years that I was in that role at Dandenong, and I think when I look at it now, it was the perfect way to begin because I've lived what it's like to be in clubland. Exactly what you've said. Anyone that runs a league knows that you have issues between league and club. There are things that we could improve on. Clubs are always going to be about the clubs. Clubs aren't about the league. They're about themselves, their own athletes, and wanting to win titles. So because I've lived in clubland, I get all that stuff. So I think that has stood me in quite good stead in my role now, that I do have empathy for some of the things that happen that clubs are not necessarily all that happy about. It's natural. Clubs want to win titles. They don't necessarily care about all the boxes that we need to tick as internally as, at league headquarters, I guess. So that's been really good for me to be able to sometimes be able to sit there and go, no, hang on a second, I've lived that. Making that decision's not going to be great for clubs, and we're able to talk about that internally. So that has really helped me in my role now.
So how was in those first couple of weeks of the role? How did you go about? Because you've come in with, I know what Dandenong would like, and it bias is the wrong word, but you had their point of view down because you'd lived it and breathed it. How did you go about? Because what I find in clubland, and we do talk about it like that, is that they do focus on their stuff so much that they rarely actually talk to, because some of the competitiveness that's on the field or on the pitch or on the park or wherever it is does bleed into the front offices, so they don't share or communicate as much. And so you might have jumped into the role without knowing what the other teams are going through. Did you try to to correct that, to sort of get out and find out what the other teams are doing and what their problems were? Yeah,
absolutely. And every club's issue is very, very different. There are some clubs who recruiting might be difficult. There are some clubs who bums on seats is hard work because of where they're located, or just, building those relationships with their local associations. Every club has their own little issue that, we would like to be able to try and help them work on. The other thing, and everyone knows in sport, is that a lot of clubs are full of volunteers. So, that's always a difficulty as well. We're a national sporting organisation, so we're not resourced as well as we'd like to be either. So it's understanding all of those things. I guess the thing that I came in with the idea that, and I think it's because I've played a team sport for so long, is that, okay, on court, we all need to be competing, but off the court, we all need to be working together, because at the end of the day, the WNBL, it's not going to exist. It's not going to exist if we don't have each other. So for me, it's without our clubs, there is no league, but we're also without us administrating the league at BA, there's no league. So for me, it was, and whether it's naive or whether it's, but I just have my team hat on and I'm like, we all need to work together, because at the end of I'm here because I love the league and I recognise how good it is, and I recognise that I want to take it to that next level, because, let's be honest, especially when we lost broadcast, we fell off the map. Like we just weren't visible anymore in the Australian sporting landscape. So for me, it was like, okay, recognising you as clubs all want to be beating each other on the court, but if we can band together, so many smart, intelligent people, if we can all, work together really well off the court, then I think that will stand us in good stead to just move forward and tick the boxes that we want to as a league as we move forward.
It does show the different priorities from a league to a club point of view, because from a club point of view, you just want to make your club as bulletproof and secure, and both financially and in team results. That's your main focus. But from a league point of view, you don't want, you want to make sure that there's, that equality across all of the teams. I mean, even the biggest league in the world at the minute is grappling with this idea of super teams, that, there's a couple of teams that have stacked with players, but then what does it leave, for the other 28? I think it was Michael Jordan that even commented on the trend of super teams in the NBA, that, if you've got 4 super teams, that means the other 28 teams are really, really bad. And so that's the challenge, from a league, because you want everybody to have success.
Yeah, that's correct. And we want everyone to make their bar a little bit higher in everything that they're doing. Let's set that bar really high. But you mentioned the big word financial stability, and that's one of our key 4 pillars of the things that we're aiming for, clubs as well. So from a league point of view, we mentioned off air before that, we're without a naming rights sponsor, so we're without some of those commercial partnerships that we're seeking, which, hurts our financial stability and moving forward, which in then turn can pass on to the league or our clubs as well. So, we've got to be really conscious of stability financially, and clubland is of the utmost importance as well. And how can we work with them? What can we be doing as a league to help them have that financial stability moving forward, because for our league to keep, moving ahead, the last thing we want is to lose a team because of those financial issues. So it's about trying to work collaboratively to work towards where we can get to together in that area as well.
So coming into the role, and you've mentioned around broadcast. So this time last year, there's no broadcast deal. The WNBL is still around. It's still, it's still going. But obviously, that would have been the loudest shouting. We need broadcast. We need to be able to be on TV. If we're on TV, then commercial partnerships start flowing because there's partners that want to see us on TV. Like it is that cycle. Yeah. So picking up those pieces, what were some of your first steps around getting towards a new broadcast deal?
Yeah, so look, it was literally day one. It was like, okay, we need to be getting in front of every broadcaster across Australia and telling them our story and seeing how we just needed to work out how we could get back on the air.
Yep.
So I can literally tick off most networks through Australia. We would have met Paul and I, so Paul Maley, who I work very closely with. We ticked off meeting with majority of the broadcasters. The issue that we faced, we got the same answer every single time was, yeah, we recognise the WNBL is globally elite. We'd love to put you on. So can you just go and get a commercial sponsor that's going to be able to pay for production and come back and see us? And that was literally the same answer that we got everywhere we went. So we're like, well, that's a tough one because $1 million to, produce a season of basketball or more, to produce a season of basketball, that just doesn't grow on trees. So it was a really interesting conversation, but it was like we were a mouse running in that wheel of we're just having the same conversation over and over and over. So we were really lucky to build a great relationship with a couple of people at Fox Sports. So Rebecca McCloy and Adam Howarth, who Paul and I met with several times over my first couple of months. And there was something about our story that really grabbed their attention. I think they were really grateful that Paul and I were quite raw and honest and would go into meetings with our heart on our sleeve and say, hey, we just need some help. Like, how can you help us? And at the time, the timing was great because internally Fox were going through all their same things, a really heavily male-dominated workforce. They were doing a lot of work around corporate social responsibility internally.
Yep.
So just the timing for us was really great. They and our story resonated with them because they understand sport.
Yep.
So they got that, hey, it's a travesty that this league's not being broadcast. What can we do to help?
And then also, the backstory for them and, Fox being, the primary pay TV provider in Australia is, that the market was shifting on them as well. There was rights moving in and out and coming up. There's now that secondary player with Optus being there. It sort of creates that bit of competition. So it sort of moves the chess pieces a little bit and created that opening for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And they heart on their sleeve from Fox is they wanted to be doing more. They wanted to make sure that they had a lot more female content on their TV on Fox Sports, but they also wanted to be living that internally. They wanted to walk the talk internally, I guess. Yep. So they came up with a project called Project Leap, which is the internal team, all-female team now at Fox Sports that are producing the WNBL. So we've got elite female talent from Fox Sports perspective across every department across Fox that now work as a part of Project Leap to bring the WNBL to the screens every week. So that was part of a project that they wanted to do internally. WNBL were the sport that they chose to be the sport that they were going to work with. So these women will spend a year working on this project. So I guess it's personal development opportunities for them internally at Fox. They all had to go through an application process. So it's a pretty amazing story. When we look back on it now, Paul and I, give each other high fives in the office because it's an incredible story, and for us to be back on the air and for Fox to recognise what a great league we were. It's without them, we just would not be back on the air. So the support that they've given us to get us back is incredible. We're just got to move on to those next big ticket items, which I mentioned before, is that commercial support.
So the thing is, for the people who have been listening in the last sort of 18 months and 2 years in the Australian landscape, definitely is from a PR point of view and from the press point of view, has been the rise of women's sport. At least like all of these leagues being launched or discovered. You've got the AFLW, the AFL Women's League that was launched last year, the Women's Big Bash League, which was launched a couple of years earlier, the reformation of netball to a completely Australian entity. And it's sort of seen as this renaissance and a lot of terrific press coverage for women's sport, but with that becomes more competition. So is it a bit of rising tides lift all boats, and it's great, all these opportunities, but then as you're saying before, the commercial realities becomes more difficult.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we recognise we're such a small country. So, yeah, all of a sudden you add in all those other sports. We're all competing for the same dollars, I guess. Yep. And it is the reality. We, as a league, we are knocking on doors daily and the no's flow through, whether that's because they've become involved now in AFLW or netball or Big Bash, or there are so many sports competing for those same dollars. I guess what I would like to see happen in commercial Australia now is the same, return on investment metrics that you would place on maybe a male sport. I just don't think you can place them on us as well. I'll use WNBL as an example because it's who I'm trying to get sponsorships through the door for. I'd like to see that change a little bit. I think sometimes...
In what way?
Well, I think I need someone to put their hand up and say, you know what, right now the WNBL aren't necessarily going to give me the million eyeballs that I would want the AFL to give me. But what they're going to give me is accessibility. They're going to give me amazing athletes. They're going to give me a sport that's heavily involved in the community. They're going to give my company the opportunity to show our female staff that we're invested in women's sport. It's kind of like walk the talk. There's so many companies out there saying we're backing women and corporate social responsibility and all those things. I'm like, well, I'd kind of like you to put your hand up and say you're backing the WNBL, and it's not necessarily because I'm going to give you a million eyeballs right now. Hopefully if you work with us, that is the end goal.
Yep.
But right now you've got to get behind us and support us because we just need someone to put their hand up and get behind us.
I think it's the right tactic because the eyeballs test and that's falling by the wayside. Like it's getting easier and easier to get eyeballs on different platforms. Digital is one that you can get them really easily, but do you want more depth to what you're doing in sponsorship? Do you want to connect with your community? Do you want to, make impressions on young women and activate in the community? And so you've got a network there that allows them to do that rather than saying, hey, we're one of the banks, come to our event at some park and we'll do face painting and balloons and we'll try to, some sort of placemaking type activity. And it's like, well, we've already got the community here. We've got 3,000 or 4,000 people coming to a game, and we've got, girls looking up to, young women that are playing the game. Like you've got the infrastructure in the community already there for them. And so if they're looking for, that's what they should be looking for rather than saying, oh, we can build it ourselves, because that's really hard to do it without that tie of sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we talked about that before. The basketball's the second highest participation sport in the country for teams. Over 1 million people are playing basketball at any one time in the country, and that goes the same globally. I think we're globally ranked number 2 as well. So, yeah, we're a sport that is huge, and I think we've been massive for years. For as long as I've been walking around, everyone talks about how many people are playing basketball. It is a huge sport. And there's some really good opportunities, for commercial partners to come on board and not just, join the WNBL. You can connect in with our Opals. The WNBL feeds our Opals program. Opals have to have, been considered one of the best national teams of the past 20 plus years. So, there's ways to connect in with the Opals. There's ways to connect in with our Boomers, who were awesome at the last Olympics, and I'm sure they will be. We've got Com Games coming up next year, which will be really exciting. You're going to get to see Australian talent on home soil again. And then, before you know it, Tokyo will be here. And so we've got lots of amazing assets that, we definitely would love someone to jump on board and get behind for me, the WNBL first and foremost. But, there's lots of great things going on in Australian basketball right now.
Yeah, so just from a structure point of view, for the people who aren't, aware, and, as Sally was sort of talking about there, the WNBL sits under the Basketball Australia, the national governing body, which also is the national teams, the women's team, the Opals, and the men's team, the Boomers. And, we discussed previously and spoken to guys like Vince Crivelli at the Melbourne United. The NBL is currently, privately run by the guys at Larry Kesselman and the guys there. They're doing a terrific job for growing the game and getting great exposure. And so, there is some tremendous assets there from a Basketball Australia point of view, both from the participation point of view, but then taking it to that elite level. And so, I think that community aspect and I think that is the angle for the sponsorship, because if you are selling sponsorship in the traditional way of burger chain, bank, whoever, put your logo here. If they're looking at it that metric, they're not getting the same numbers that they are, because whatever it is. So, but if you go the other angle and say, well, this is what we do, and I think if you look at like some of the AFL clubs that have got really strong community programs and that kind of thing, they've been able to get. That's where most of their sponsorship value has been driven. The guys at the Western Bulldogs do a terrific job with their community programs out west, and Mission's been really, a big part of that. And so I think that's where sponsorship's moving. I think the hey, I want eyeballs.
Yeah, the days of logos on a shirt, they're definitely long gone. It's about community engagement, and that's something that I think the WNBL does exceptionally well. You only have to go to a game, and I don't know many sports where at the end of a game you can actually walk out on the court and meet your idol, have a photo taken with your idol, get her autograph. I took my 12-year-old daughter and several of her friends to a Dandenong game a few weeks ago, and they could not believe that they were able to walk on the court with their little autograph book, and they're just some of the best memories. Look back at heading on down to Geelong, as a part of the Melcats all those years ago, and getting Mark Yates, who was my favourite. I loved him. Getting his autograph literally 20 times in my autograph book, and I still sit here now and go, they're some of my best memories. It's really difficult to get that done in footy now, but access to our athletes, it's incredible to get to a WNBL game and take your son or your daughter out onto the court and meet those players after a game. We're such an accessible, community focused league that we've got some great things going on. And
I want to touch on another sports story with your family background.
Yep.
Richmond obviously recently won the AFL Premiership. We probably can still see the damage to Swan Street from my office here as the Tiger fans went bananas. But your dad played a massive role in Tigers history. That win might not have come had not been some of the work that your dad did.
Yeah, it's been for the family. It's been an incredible few weeks, sort of leading into the Richmond heading into that grand final, and tinged with a lot of sadness that he wasn't going to be able to be there to see it. Yep. Obviously I was quite young when the Save Our Skins was all happening, and I think
your dad Neville Crowe.
Neville Crowe.
Neville Crowe headed up the Save Our Skins. So we're talking, previously about clubs and financial stability. This is what year in the 80s.
I think it was around the 1989, 1990 that Save Our Skins all really ramped up.
And the club was effectively on its knees,
absolutely gone.
Financially needed support, and your dad helped rally the troops and rally the funds to get the club back on its feet.
It's an incredible story, and the amount of people that have reached out, and it's so touching to be receiving messages saying, thank you. Without your dad, we may not be sitting here today watching our team win a premiership. So, it was an incredible time over the last few weeks to really learn. I probably learnt a whole lot more about Dad that I maybe didn't know, because it happened all those years ago, and I'm just a kid running around on a basketball court and maybe not paying the attention to actually the enormity of what he achieved. So So I guess I kind of feel like, not that I want to say that, we need to be rattling tins of the WNBL, certainly not at, at that stage. But yeah, there's definite synergies around what Dad did. And I try and, definitely embody the spirit of what Dad did all those years ago. It was quite incredible. And like I said, and it was, I think it was literally day one for me going to the job that Dad passed away. So it was, I guess from day one it has felt like, draw on Dad's spirit. He was an amazing man, what he was able to do. And even, it's been amazing reliving what a great footballer he actually was as well. Yep. So all those things that he achieved and as administrator was incredible. But for me to, be sitting there and jumping on YouTube and actually watching him play and hear that he was fourth in a Brownlow, one year, and we all know the John Nichols story and the absolute tragedy that Dad missed out on playing in that 67 flag. Whenever I see that footage, I absolutely lose it.
Yeah.
That's a moment tinged with a whole lot of sadness that, he missed that and, has missed winning. But I certainly hope that he's up there with a lot of Tiger fans that have not enjoyed that premiership success for a long time, and that he's somewhere there and knows that it's all happened and is smiling that he knows he had a massive role in getting them out on that field. And, it's been incredible.
I was seeing, some of your posts sort of as it was coming, as the game was coming up, and seeing it was obviously bringing back lots of memories, but also, bringing out all these stories that you probably didn't know because, as a younger kid, you didn't know. And then, going back to his playing days, so it's like you really felt, part of that whole success and the great story that it was. And it's, it's good to be, feel part of that bigger story.
Yeah. And it blows you away that we all know the massive juggernaut that the AFL is now, but to go back and see those scenes of people literally shaking tins, it's quite incredible. And for those that, know the story, Dad's wife, Valley's my stepmum. So, yep. And Valley has told me the story many times of, her two daughters, Sus and Bella, wheeling them around in a pram at these rallies, literally people putting their tins in, underneath the pram of the girls. It's incredible to think that, when you think about it, it's not that long ago that there were people rattling tins to save an AFL club and an AFL club like Richmond.
Yep.
So, it's been an amazing few weeks.
And I guess, the synergies, and again, not saying that the WNBL, but the synergies are there of, hey, you took over the job. You've now got the broadcast in place, really good agreement with Fox, and starting to have those those conversations. And it is like you're at base camp on Everest, and it's like there's still a big mountain to climb, but you're starting to make that progress.
Yeah, and that's the exciting thing is that we've made a really great start, and to have. And I said the same thing last year. I could not believe the talent that I saw on the floor in last year's WNBL season, and again in the first 3-4 weeks that we've gone through already, to know that we've got these amazing opals that have all come back to the league, and we're full of we've got a lot of WNBA talent now running around, and those WNBA girls, they don't come out here and find it easy. So it really does show me what an outstanding league the WNBL is, because the WNBA players that come out here, they find it tough. They're not just hitting the floor and scoring an easy 30 points. It's hard work out there, and so I'm so very, very proud, I guess, to be a part of what is a globally elite league. And like you said before, it is a bit like climbing Everest. We've got so much work to do, but I'm glad that there's someone like me in this role. I think, because you do face a lot of difficulties on a daily basis. I think if you weren't really invested in the league, it would be a pretty hard gig.
Yeah.
Because it's, there's no denying I have many challenges. So I think the fact that I genuinely care about the league holds me in good stead, because I can step back sometimes and just breathe and go, okay, not an ideal situation, but I have to stay in my role for as long as I can, because I care and I want to see this league go to where it should be. considered by the Australian sporting public.
And do you think there's because in a difference to the the NBL and the NBA, which run along the same time, do you think there's potential for growth in audiences outside of Australia as people who go, I love women's basketball, I love the WNBA, or I love the European leagues, and I want to watch what's happening in the WNBL? I mean, because digital sort of starts opening that up.
Yeah.
And the first piece of the puzzle is you need someone to tape it. And so once you're actually getting it recorded, it potentially opens up some opportunities, globally potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that happen last year when we trialled just running a few games live on Facebook, and for the people who had players from overseas playing out here, for them to be able to connect and actually see games. We saw how popular that was. The work that we're doing with Fox now, I guess, is really exciting. So we're learning a lot every day. We're running trials at the moment. There are some clubs that are potentially going to look at streaming some games, which we may be able to sit on the Fox Sports app, which is really another exciting development for us moving forward. Hence why this partnership with Fox Sports. And, we don't call it broadcast rights. We call it's a genuine partnership. They want to see the league progress, and they want to work with us as a league and our clubs to assist in all areas. So clearly that growth in visibility is really, really important, because in Clubland, we want people to be able to see it so that they say, hey, I actually need to get down to that stadium next week and watch, because that's incredible basketball. So for our clubs, the best thing we can be doing for them is getting them visible again so that we can get some bums on seats, because it's an incredible night out with your family heading to a WNBL game. Yeah,
and the thing is, and basketball particularly is one where you do follow the stars, so you've got, stars in the WNBL that young girls and boys want to look up to and go, yep, that, those girls can play. And, the vision you need to be able to, that's what a partner like Fox be able to say, oh, can you do these stories? Can you do these grabs? Give them to the clubs, and the clubs can bring them out so they can go, oh, I want to follow, Liz Cambridge and that kind of thing, to say, and then go out and see them.
Yeah, you're spot on. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is to actually tell some stories about who these women are. They're incredible women. They're doing great things out there other than, what they do, what we see every day on the basketball floor. There are some incredible stories. I was speaking to the Melbourne Boomers the other day, and they were selling some replica jerseys, and Monique Conti's gone out and outsold Liz Cambridge like 4-1 or something. So you've got all these little girls and boys that are heading along to a Boomers game falling in love with their little point guard Monique Conti. So, you don't have to be the household name to get people following you. The skies are the limit for everyone, and it's incredible to see who these young boys and girls, who becomes their favourite player. It's quite fascinating to see who they fall in love with for all different reasons. You've got your little point guards looking up to their future point guards, and that's exactly what I did as a kid. Michelle Timms was clearly who I adored as a kid, because that's exactly who I wanted to be. So, we're WNBL players, we come in all different shapes and sizes and speed, and there's all those different things that, there's someone there for everyone to pick as their role model, because that's who they are as a kid, and they can see themselves being there and being that player in another 10 years' time.
Well, thank you very much. Before I finish up, I've got to do my closing five. But before I do that, where can people find you, and where can people find the NBL if they go online?
Okay, so best place to head to is just our website, wnbl.com.au, where you'll get scores, stats, live stats for games, fixtures. They're all on our website. Obviously, we're all over social media as well, so you can get to our Facebook page. We'd love to get more people to our Instagram page, which is at the WNBL. Twitter, jump on all the social media. You can, follow us in all those different places. And then the other thing that we'd obviously love fans to do is get on all our clubs pages as well. So all our clubs are doing exceptional work now in social media. So everyone's got their own Instagram and Twitter and Facebook pages, etc. So you're going to be kept well up to date if you jump on and follow us on social media.
Well, definitely. And yourself, where would they find you, Sal?
Oh, where will they find me? So my 500 odd people that follow me on Twitter. So be careful. Can we do a deal today? How can we maybe get that up to 1,000?
We can.
You can find me at Sally Phillips on Twitter. That's sort of an Instagram. Can't even tell you what my Instagram handle is. Isn't that awful?
That's all right.
I think it's probably at Sally Phillips as well.
I think it is.
You can find me on. I'm always on Twitter and Instagram, not as much on Facebook. Try and keep that private so I'm not driving all my friends crazy with the amount of stuff that I post on basketball.
But we will share your LinkedIn on the
and
on the
LinkedIn as well. That'd be
notes.
awesome. And WNBL's on LinkedIn now as well. So that was something that I started a few months ago. So we'd love people to jump on there. We're always sharing lots of good stories on our LinkedIn page as well. So jump on and like everything that you can and help us boost our numbers. That'd be fantastic.
Terrific. So for closing five, do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Would definitely be an AFL game, I would say.
A Tigers game?
Well, do you know what? And even though I tell the story, it's a very weird story, obviously, with my mum and dad's background. People are going to freak out, but I'm actually a Geelong supporter.
Okay.
So as much as I adore Richmond
you did drop the Mark Yates,
was the Mark Yates thing before, So sorry, this is probably meant to be a fast five. But so I grew up a Geelong supporter because I grew up with mum, and mum was a fanatical Geelong supporter. So
in the late 80s, and
I would have been
Gary Ablett and Mark Yates and
yeah.
So it would have been down at Cardinia
saw
Park,
lots
maybe?
of grand final losses. So it could have been down at Cardinia Park. Mum was a crazy fan and dragged my sister and I on to every game. I think if you watch the video of the 89 grand final, my face flashes up in my Paul Couch Brownlow t-shirt somewhere. So I'll have to try and find that and post that.
As people know, I've been caught on grand final footage before as well. So that's
my claim
all
to fame with my very, very bad 80s hairstyle.
What's your? Do you have a favourite food memory at a sports event, or do you have a go-to food, whether you're going to a game of basketball or have you been somewhere where you go, that food was amazing?
Oh, you can't beat a 4 and 20 at the footy.
Yeah.
That's, it has to. I can't think of anything else I would rather,
And what's the first app you open in the morning?
I'm trying to set some really heavy standards on myself to get off social media right now.
Okay, yep.
Only because I'm also a mother of 2 kids and I'm trying to set a good example to them to get off technology.
Yes. So what is the first?
I reckon I go to Twitter and just have a bit of a look at all the news.
Yep.
But I am becoming a massive fan of Instagram. I really love the photos and the real stories that I find on that. So, probably have a bit of a flick through news on Twitter and then head to Instagram while I'm telling myself to get off social media and technology.
Oh, well, you can't do that in my office. That does not apply.
That's blasphemy in here.
Who should is there someone you would like to nominate that the podcast listeners should follow, whether it's someone you're reading a lot and getting a lot of insight from, or even potentially maybe one of your stars from the WNBL and they're doing great things in the social space?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think someone from a WNBL point that would be fantastic for people to follow, she's an amazing ambassador for our league, is Kelsey Griffin, who suits up for the Bendigo Spirit. She's just also represented Australia for the first time after being naturalised a year or two ago, I think it was now, down in Bendigo. So she got to rep Australia at the recent Asia Cup and was the MVP of the tournament. She does some great stuff on social media, really heavily involved in the Bendigo community. So I really love watching Kelsey and all she does on social media. She's a great athlete and, puts some great stuff out there and is a fantastic role model.
So the last one, and we have discussed social media a little bit, so we're going to wrap this one up. What, in the Kevin Durant style, where you're the real MVP and you only get to pick one, what social media platform is your MVP? Because I don't let people hedge themselves and say, I like a bit of this one, I like a bit of this one. And you can answer it, there's 2 ways to answer it. You can answer it as yourself, and then you can answer it as the WNBL.
Okay. I love Instagram right now. I think it gives us the ability to put some great stories out there. I love the fact that it's so visual. Instagram's the big one for me. We have had a little disaster, and I don't know if you can help us with this. Unfortunately, with a change of staff a little while back, the WNBL currently have 2 Instagram accounts, which is not ideal.
No, that's not ideal.
No. So we're having terrible trouble shutting our old one down. We want to get fans and we want to get our players over to our new one.
We may have
can you please help me?
We may have updated this. By the time this gets published, hopefully there's 1 account.
Awesome.
But we'll see. I've never had someone ask me to do something while I'm on a podcast. That's the best advice, and I'll be in real strife if every guest starts doing it. But we'll look at this after we finish recording. Sally, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Pleasure to have you here.
Awesome. I've loved it. Thank you.
Want to start driving more revenue from digital? Go to sportsgeekcampaigns.com.
Thanks again to Sally Phillips. Sal Phillips. That's 2 L's, both in Sal and in Phillips. Send her a tweet. Tell her that you are listening, or you listen to the episode, and especially if you are a fan of basketball in Australia and women's basketball in Australia, what do you think of the WNBL? Have you been following it? Have you been to a game? Are you watching the new coverage on Fox Sports? I think it is, as we discussed, there's a lot of opportunities in women's sport overall, and has had a growth phase, or at least from a PR point of view. And the thing is, the WNBL has an absolute elite product. So it is really that connecting the grassroots with the elite is the key. But I do think they're definitely making huge strides in a lot of areas. And one of the things that we did sort of look at post interview, and I sent it on to Sally, is our recent Facebook data audiences guide, which you can get on sportsgeekhq.com/FB data, I should say. I think it's because it really works quite well, and I'm getting great feedback because it allows you to start ascertaining, who are the audiences that you are engaged with, both from a web point of view, the data you may have captured, people who are watching your videos, the people who are hitting up your page. And so it does start giving you that picture, and it really becomes quite valuable when you want to start going back to your sponsors to be able to say, these are the fans that are engaging on our Instagram accounts, or these are the fans that are consuming our videos. So it just gives you that next level of data that Facebook is willingly giving up as a way to bring you into the fold from the advertising platform point of view. So if you haven't downloaded that, go to sportsgeekhq.com/FB data. If you have downloaded it and using it, please send us your feedback. I really appreciating the reviews and some of the feedback from people who have read and implemented some of the things in there. And I think what it does do is it sort of sets the table for what we're doing in the Sports Geek campaigns work, where we're starting to ramp up the pitch deck development and the rate card assessment for clients to be able to then go back out to sponsors and say, well, this is what we're offering from a digital point of view, both from a content, a campaigns point of view, and then from an audience's point of view. So if you're interested in some help in us building out digital pitch decks to help you pitch to your sponsors, to give a bit more uplift in your digital assets, and also what you're delivering from a digital point of view, you can simply go to sportsgeekcampaigns.com and book in a chat, or as a listener to the podcast, you can always just reach out to me, Sean, at sportsgeekhq.com, and I'm happy to have a chat to assess, one, where you're at as far as being able to deliver, but then also where some of those opportunities are. The whole thing around Sports Geek campaigns is to, as a done-for-you sponsorship service, is to make sure that you're making money every time you drive out new campaigns. So please get in touch. I'm more than happy to help out Sports Geek listeners, and hopefully have wins across the board for teams and leagues, and so leagues like the WNBL, who are building engaged audiences. That's what sponsors will want both now and down the track. And focusing on the data and what you can deliver in digital is the way to go. So until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join over 1,000 sports business executives in Sports Biz Slack. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/Slack. Please leave an iTunes review for Sports Geek. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Find out how to drive between $8,000 and $30,000 in profit for each digital campaign you sell sponsors. Check out sportsgeekcampaigns.com. Just like Jimmy Butler, you can call Sean anytime at 614-407-0407-200.